Hey, everyone! I need your help! So what do you say, buddy? Let's go rescue the gang!
Welcome to Shipwrecked 64. My name is Troll Gaming. We gotta help out Bucky and his friends before it's too late. Today, I would like to dive into the core gameplay loop of Shipwrecked, as well as its extensive lore, secrets, and ARG that help tell its story. We begin the game at the menu hub, where, upon starting a new game, we are presented the option of playing the modern version of Shipwrecked 64 that was restored to a playable version, or the unlockable 1997 version that was pulled from shelves several days after its release, following complaints from consumers. I actually don't want to spend too much time on this version of the game, as most of the meat, quote-unquote, is in the latter version, but here's a quick overview. Bucky lets us know that his ship is crash-landed on an island inhabited by wolves, where he and his friends must do tasks for their leader, Chief Wolf, before being allowed to leave. His friends consist of Walter Walrus, Giovanni Goose, and Olive Otter, who each have their own mini-games that require Bucky to platform and press buttons, turn off ovens before they catch on fire, and collect coconuts, respectively. Upon completing all the mini-games, including Chief Wolf's that require us to rebuild our ship, we are able to leave the island before the volcano erupts. Alternatives to this ending are finding the armless rabbit, Stumbler O'Hare, who asks us to help with his painting.
Bucky! It's done!
We can then help escape, as well as finding JD, a mysterious, dapper, rat-like creature who informs us of a large tanker capable of saving the whole island that we are able to acquire following some platforming that lets us rescue not only our friends, but the island's inhabitants as well. Failing to do these tasks results in not just the volcano erupting, but instead obliterating the island's inhabitants, according to the Steam achievement. Ouch. Once we beat the 2023 version of Shipwrecked, we unlock Shipwrecked 64, the 1997 release that was removed from shelves. And we find out just how bad things really are. Also, as the game mentions, this section is not for the faint of heart, so expect some jump scares. At this point, the game starts out relatively similar to what we're used to. Bucky and his friends are stranded on the island, and we have to rescue them. However, the mini-games are a tad different than what we're used to. For example, when playing Wally's minigame, that normally involves us platforming to press buttons and avoid moving when the screen turns dark, reveals disturbing images in the background of the map, including a distorted version of Wally's face and human faces? Who is that? We are also able to break out of the map where we see a boat in the distance, as well as a button which, upon pressing it, forcibly opens a video in our web browser named Waterway Demo. These abnormalities continue as in Giovanni's minigame, we're able to break out of the map and find Giovanni dead, lying face down on an open flame from one of the stoves that we normally turn off in the minigame. Bucky states, "Nothing was left when they found him." Similarly, in Olive's level, we can jump off a cliff onto an invisible platform with a button that, when pressed, opens another video that zooms into a certain area of the map that, once we visit it, contains a burning house with what looks to be a noose around a black and white photo of a man? Well, I know now not to mess with you, Olive. There is also a door in her minigame that leads us to a floating platform in the distance from the main island that, if we enter in the correct code on the keypad, opens a video in a browser and informs us that the time limit that normally results in the volcano erupting if we take too long to complete the minigames is now turned off. This is the first of many keypads that are used to hide secrets in the game. Later in the video I'll put on screen all the codes I was able to collect, so stay tuned. In addition to the disturbing imagery that can now be found in each of Bucky's friends' levels, oddities begin to happen around the island map as well. For instance, after reading one of the signs near Olive's minigame and waiting, muffled screaming can be heard, as well as cries for help, before the game fades to black and CCTV footage of what appears to be a blue, rat-like mascot creepily making his way across the corridor.
1015, Hello International, at 1520, wind 230 degrees 7 knots, cabin close, temperature 23, dew point 19.
Beyond this, after failing Chief Wolf's minigame several times, we begin to hear what sounds almost like bugs. Almost as if crawling through mud, we can hear them squirming and convulsing through a sound that alternates between our left and right headphone and persists until we enter the next minigame. At some point, we are also able to find a part of the wall near Walter Walrus's area that can be clipped through that, upon reaching the end, we find Chief Wolf overlooking the island. Now being referred to as Connor, he proudly tells us how he built the island from scratch, combining thousands of polygons and using his mouse and keyboard as an artist would use a brush and canvas. You gotta work on the finer details a bit, buddy, but your art is getting there. Despite these irregularities, the main focus of the area is still its minigames, which, surprisingly, require us to fail them in order to progress the story. This pattern first becomes noticeable when failing Giovanni Goose's level, where, upon failing to shut off the smoking ovens in time, he can no longer be interacted with. Rather, upon walking away, we are given our first jump scare of the game that begins to detail the gruesome story this innocent game appears to mask. From this footage, we see that Bucky took who we can only presume to be a person who played Giovanni Goose and slammed his head into the wall before burning him alive by dunking his head in the kitchen fryer. If this wasn't bad enough, upon approaching Giovanni again, he acts as if he has never seen us before, rather saying his very first voice lines while we can hear his screaming in the background. Continuing to fail Giovanni's minigame, the ovens begin to spontaneously combust without any opportunity to shut them off, providing us with another video of Giovanni slumped over a kitchen fryer, setting off the building's smoke detectors and fire alarm in a desperate attempt to draw someone's attention to what had happened. The sense of dread these scenes filled me with was both terrifying and praiseworthy, given how excellently done it was. The game's ability to fill the player with unease continues into Bucky's other friends' minigames, where, starting with Walter Walrus, unsettling material that should not be in a kid's game is nonetheless able to be found. To illustrate, in addition to other glitches from other minigames bleeding into this one, including Olive without eyes following Bucky and Giovanni Stoves appearing, we were able to find a door near the end of the third platforming challenge that, upon entering, brings us to a short walkway with two poop golems? What I initially thought to be poop golems more closely resemble crude wooden statues of Bucky, as evidenced by the blue necktie worn around their necks that matches the one that Bucky adorns. Between these wooden statues is a button that, when pressed, plays the following audio.
I haven't been acting right. No one around has been acting right lately. I took her to the hospital. I walked out on my own. And they said that she's going to be there for a while.
The audio clip seems to detail how a man named Mark Mullins sorrowfully describes how nobody is acting right, including someone important to him who he shares will be staying in the hospital for an extended period of time. Before we are given any time to reflect on this message, we are transported to another area in front of a mirror, where Bucky laments his appearance, describing how he, quote, has never felt so discontent. Before being hoisted away by a fishhook that happens normally when failing Walter's level. Speaking of, we are brought back to his level shortly after, where upon closer examination, the wooden statue can be seen watching us from a distance, taking note of us continuing to fail the minigame. Over time, this results in the game moving itself on its own during the dark sequences where we are asked not to move. From here, we are shown a cutscene of what appears to be another victim of Bucky, straining their eyes to put Bucky into focus before the mascot presumably ends the helpless person's life. The remaining two minigames involve Olive Otter and Chief Wolf. The former's minigame devolves from collecting coconuts into a barren landscape as the decay from repeated failures begin to set in. Upon subsequent failures, we are brought to a confined room with nothing but a few beds, some pipes, and an audio tape labeled Olivia's Last Phone Call. Upon playing the tape, we hear the following to the backdrop of a disturbing video.
Hello, we are not available now. Please leave your name and phone number after the beep. We will return your call.
He showed up at the door again. I don't know what to do. Something about him just felt wrong.
Olivia, who seems to have voice acted Olive, appears to have been stalked and harassed by someone in the Bucky costume before the latter had enough and broke into her home before attacking her. Before leaving this area, we hear Olivia saying, "He showed up at the door again. I don't know what to do," before the last word glitches and repeats over and over until a warped figure of Olive Otter briefly appears in the margins of our screen.
He showed up at the door again. I don't know what to do.
We get more context into how Olivia met her demise by failing the minigame one more time, where we are now transported outside the same room we were in earlier to find that Bucky beat Olivia until she was unconscious, dragged her bloody body around the cabin, and drowned her in the lake shortly after before walking away from the scene of the crime. Now all that's left is Chief Wolf's minigame, where now our boat pieces are set aflame as we collect them, and, after failing the minigame enough times, we are presented a jarring ending after being caught by Horns, the shadowy figure who patrols the area to prevent us from rebuilding our ship, all the while repeating the same sequence of letters in the NATO phonetic alphabet. This end screen is much different than the previous that fades to red, where now the static image is replaced by visual artifacts and what appears to be foliage in the background, where shortly after we are teleported to a dark, lofty room that contains only Chief Wolf and a Silvertech Prime computer. Chief Wolf asks what we are doing here and surmises that we want answers. Before we can respond, he admits that there is nothing for us here, but bestows upon us a pair of night vision goggles, similar to those that we use in his minigame, that can be used to find secrets in some of Bucky's other friends' levels. At various points in failing these minigames, we have the option of leaving the island, which provides us a variety of different endings, including one with the rat-like creature we saw earlier, now residing in the background as the credits roll, as well as this ending, where we can hear Olivia exclaim her excitement toward another character before the screen distorts and we are startled by her mascot's grisly appearance.
Perfect! Oh, Peggy, thank you. I'll meet you at the store so we can have. As we progress, new areas begin to be unlocked that are thematic based on each character. Giovanni's area beyond the theater is a dining hall,
Walter seems to have an open area with a large body of water that we later see corresponds to a dam, and the door near Olive's area contains a swimming pool. Oh hey, found Stumbler's arms. One of them, at least. Within these locations, we are tasked with solving varying ciphers based on obscure information provided in the area to obtain 4-digit codes that can be entered into keypads that will allow us to progress further in the game. A small aside, my small, primordial brain and sheer stubbornness at refusing to look up these codes caused me to be stuck on these and future keypads for a long time. And I mean a long time. However, my friends are far more intelligent than I am, so their craftiness often helped out in my darkest beaver hours. The first cipher belonging to Olive's pool area involved listening to an audio tape that plays hot cross buns, and per the helpful description on the wall, involves us counting how many times those notes are played, allowing us to progress past the first keypad. In the same fashion, Giovanni's dining hall can be cleared by paying attention to what colors are painted with what numbers in an art gallery that extends from his area, where entering the corresponding numbers to the colored flags brings us to this ominous walkway and the booming voice of a monotone narrator.
The idea of the studio grounds originally came into conception after a park known as Broadside Beach was created.
Upon listening intently, it sounds as if she is describing Rex Broadside, the creator of Broadside Animation, who was responsible for the creation of Bucky Beaver and other creative iterations that followed, including other mascots, an island named Broadside Beach designed to be a theme park resort, and a separate amusement park known as Studio Grounds that was completed following his death. Following this route further lands us in what appears to be a museum? This museum in particular seems to be dedicated to Broadside Animation and displays several of Rex's early developed characters, as well as title cards from the animations that they appeared in. There's also a difficult to make out picture of Rex that appears distorted, making him seem monsterly. While reading the title card of Rex's first animation featuring Bucky that involved him escaping a coffin underground after being buried alive, Bucky remarks, "I wish I could be buried too," which marks the first time we've heard Bucky expressing his distaste for the events happening in the game, and possibly his lack of desire to keep living through them. The remaining cipher can be found in Walter's area, where we listen to a recording of a man reciting various letters of the NATO phonetic alphabet, where we are required to listen to specific letters, count how many times they have been said, and then type the following code into the keypad. Upon doing so, 3 obelisks depicting Chief Wolf, Stumbler O'Hare, and JD, also referred to as Vandal, erupt out of the water and contain walkways that allow us to progress to the next area. Interestingly, this area contains a room with a taxidermy bust of horns, a dead wolf villager left to rot on the bed, and 2 notes, one that describes a meet and greet with Walter Walrus at Studio Grounds, and another describing how someone and Liz were listening to music until 3 obelisks depicting pure souls emerged from the water. Amongst all the little secrets and items found in each area that raise only more questions, one thing is now clear. We are able to progress further into the game's world. For reference going forward, I'll be referring to each game's area as a specific layer as the game does, with us having completed Layer 1, the island, outskirts, and any attached area according to the wiki, and Layer 2, the cipher areas and the small hub area that remains before we move on to Layer 3. By pressing buttons on the wall near a computer, we bypass a simple puzzle and find ourselves in a room with yet another computer and a wolf villager who encourages us to return from where we came and save our friends. Pressing the button on the nearby computer opens a tab in our web browser that takes us to Cogware Games' website. Here, we learn about the history behind Shipwrecked's development, and are able to click a video that takes us to the intro video that normally plays at the start of a new playthrough, as well as some more details about the game. However, clicking on the hyperlinked A in the attached paragraph takes us to a part of the website that is far more sinister. Here, we see a video of Vandal, the same blue rat-like creature from earlier, being recorded from a distance, while in the background is the same image repeated over and over, labeled in the source code as GaryBG.jpg. Small images also repeat, labeled Starling Nathan, in a line of text that reads, "I don't think I've ever met a man as pathetic as you." As if this wasn't foreboding enough, the entire time that we are in Layer 2, Bucky figuratively drags his feet and actively expresses his content for being in this area, remarking, "Where are we? The smell's atrocious. We should leave. We should save. Yeah, we don't gotta walk back. You can open the menu and hit respawn, and we'll be on our merry way." As we progress further, he continues to share his disapproval, pleading for us to listen to him and demanding we use, quote, "our damn heads, idiot." Beaver pun intended. It is here we are presented with the entrance to Layer 3, surrounded by notes from Connor at CODEBREAKER Games that tells us that we're free to enter, but be warned for what we'll find down there, as well as graffiti on the walls that depict a game of Hangman for someone named Brandon, and messages begging for us to stop and come back from where we came. If only we listened to their desperate attempts to stop us. We now find ourselves in Layer 3, a dark, dreary area that invites lurking monsters to jump out at us at any moment. On the ground, we find a candle to illuminate our journey, as well as an audio tape written in Beaver Scratch, a language used within the game for puzzles and to encrypt certain messages. Now, normally, we're required to cross-reference Beaver Scratch messages with text we know, such as the words written in the menu UI, but for the sake of clarity, I created this table, which really only sets the letters either forward or backward, depending on their position in the alphabet. Once translated, the message reads, "Olivia," where a narrator slowly, almost happily, describes the gruesome detail regarding Olivia's death.
It hit her before she even knew it was coming. It started with loud screaming, reduced over time to mere croaks. Any will to swim away slowly drained away as she sunk down further into the water, polluting its natural color. The rodent stood a few feet away, watching the effects of his actions, and only began to walk away when she stopped struggling.
Maybe Bucky was right. We should have headed back. Venturing further into the land of darkness reveals a door that, when entered, brings us to a room where "they're lying" is plastered in what we can only hope to be red paint, as well as some other messages on the walls that either direct us on where to go, or command either us or some other unknown person to, quote, "look me in the eye and tell me." Beyond this room is a computer sitting in a clearing between 3 doors, with one being west, another north, and the remaining door being east. Clicking the button on the computer opens a tab in our browser, revealing a terrifying secret. A Helping Nub by Stumbler and Wolf.
Hi there!
Within this unexpectedly cheerful website that is an extension of cogwaregames.com, Stumbler provides us information about the new hellscape we have found ourselves in, providing us information about tools available to us, including the Candle and Silvertech Prime computers lying around, as well as a guide to Beaver Scratch, the different ciphers that we will need to solve Layer 3's puzzles, and the mention of a Layer 4 that may or may not exist. Stumbler claims that, quote, "truth be told, we don't know if there is a Layer 4, or just how deep this all goes. Regardless of whether we'll find, quote, paradise down there," he outlines the tasks necessary to reach that end goal, listening to music notes to open a specific door, and collecting batteries to power a supercomputer. In addition to this mystery surrounding the possible existence of a Layer 4, Stumbler describes in detail the creatures that lurk within this layer, referred to as, quote, dwellers or starlings. Stumbler reports that these creatures, quote, don the faces of Bucky's own friends and wander the dark, searching for any unfortunate little beaver who happens to stumble into their path. At least we'll see some familiar faces down here. Stumbler also cautions us that, quote, you cannot rely on your menu to keep you safe, and that we need to stay alert, as we may not be as safe as we think. With his instructions, we begin to brave the shadowy unknown as we head into each area, where we discover a series of buttons locked behind various keypads that require us to solve what Stumbler refers to as the Shakespeare, Mozart, and Picasso ciphers. In addition to these puzzles, there are various audio tapes scattered around the three areas, which provide both devlogs about the game's development, as well as a truthful glimpse into the dissatisfaction of one of the game's developers, expressing his animosity towards being overworked and not having his work appreciated. In one clip, titled Devlog Mark, the developer exasperatingly shares the following.
Hearts and souls into it, but is that even enough? His standards must be set astronomically high. Plus, after the thing I found, I just gotta be honest.
I feel so much less safe around that man.
These audio tapes continue to raise questions that, at this point in the game, remain unanswered. Who is the identity of the developer making these tapes? Why does it seem that the game's development at times seem like everything is going smoothly, where other tapes detail the stress and frustration with trying to meet others' expectations? Presumably Broadside Animation, who is likely funding them and has these, quote, astronomically high standards. Complicating things further, in each of the three areas, we can find computers that, when pressed, send us to a YouTube video that displays graphic imagery of 3 deceased people, as well as snippets of how they died that is partially cut off, as each video is only a third of the total composition. While editing, I was able to piece these videos together where we can see just how each person died. Nathan Stewart died at the Broadside Animation offices with, quote, several large gases in his face from an office chair. Olivia Finch, found at the bottom of the lake outside the cabins at Broadside Beach's staff quarters. Gary Wilson, found in the Broadside Beach kitchen with his back broken, his face bloodied, and his head submerged in the deep fat fryer. Amongst these grisly deaths of the Broadside employees responsible for voicing Bucky's friends, there's a part of the video described as, quote, starling conversion, which talks about starlings, or what Stumbler referred to as the dwellers that we will encounter that look like Bucky's friends. The video then describes how the dwellers are actually creations manufactured by Broadside Innovation Labs. What? Made on the island of Nulla Terra, or, quote, land of nothingness, or nothing earth, depending on how you translate it, starlings are manufactured from a, quote, strange fleshy mineral found in large holes of the island known as Stitch Caves by the people who harvested it. When applying the substance to living creatures in vivo, the material caused new bones to develop in rats once their skin was removed, akin to a, quote, plant sprouting from soil, with the video remarking how the material appears to alter and change the creature's skeletal structure to fit whatever condition it is in. The video ends by saying that, quote, when the 3 victims emerged, it was in our best interest to fix that before it became a public ordeal, seemingly acknowledging that the 3 Broadside employees who died were turned into these creatures with this resource found on the island. Making matters worse, it seems that the executives at Broadside had no intention of letting these deaths be made known to the public, instead opting to create more test subjects for their sinister science experiment. Well, at least I feel better knowing that we have yet to see these monstrosities.
Bucky, I really bad
Upon solving this area's puzzles and pressing the necessary buttons, we are able to progress to the next part of Layer 3, the Plaza. Before exploring this area and what makes it so terrifying, I just want to put on screen the list of codes I compiled during my playthrough for Layer 3 and layers that came before and after it. I know I struggle with some of the puzzles in the game, so hopefully this will be helpful if you find yourself in a similar position. Once we enter this area, we find that it is a vast space with several different buildings. Seeing that it contains elements from previous areas in the game, One assumption is that this area was made to be a debug area, given credence by one of the developers' recordings.
Alright. Today is August 12th, 1996. We've been given the go-ahead to get back to work on the project. It's been rocky, but we're all getting back into it. Harry's been at his workstation all day, playing through, well, he's been stuck on Olive's level, the coconut one. Apparently, there's been an issue with the chests spawning in. They just appear at random, which is already bad. But then they soon vanish when you get too close. I'm really just not sure. It's very confusing. I'll figure it out soon, though. I'm sure of it. And Liz has been busy as always. She's trying to catch up on the game's artwork. We finally got a finalized design for the wolf guy, mostly changing his proportions, so we can share his animations with other characters if we need to. But yeah, she's killing it, as usual, and on my end, not too much. I'm just chipping away on a little debug map right now, calling it just the Plaza for now, until we can think of a cooler name for it. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. I'm going to keep recording these. They're very fun, for sure. Alright, see ya!
It is here within this area that we first come face to face with the dwellers, who resemble Bucky's friends but with a much more grisly appearance. Olive no longer has any eyes and has a pipe protruding from her left shoulder. The same can be said for Giovanni, who has a hollow visage outside of some kind of kitchen utensil, whether it be a spoon or fork, sticking out of his eye. Walter's appearance is similarly grotesque, with him having a giant maw of a mouth riddled with sharp teeth, and also not having any pants. These symbiotic monsters do not hesitate to chase us down full speed upon entering their domain, with each mascot having a different ability. Olive often appears in the margins of our screen, where, if we do not enter a pipe fast enough to hide, she appears in close proximity before grabbing us. In the same way, despite Giovanni not being able to teleport, he will sprint full speed at us upon hearing the sound of an audio tape being played. Walter is equally able to disrupt our ability to stay safe from him and the other starlings by being able to smash our pipes to forcibly draw us out of our hiding spots. Oh, and did I forget to mention that they can also jump? Seeing them leap from platform to platform scared me so much the first time I saw it, I thought I was going to have to clean up some coconuts out of my pants. Interestingly, outside of the objective for the area, which we discover is to turn on 20 computers in 10 minutes, yes, you read that correctly, 20, we discover more about the disagreements between Cogware Games and their publisher Broadside Animation. In an audio tape labeled Affirmations 2, a man previously referred to by other devlogs as Mark Mullins, the CEO of Broadside Animation, describes how he cannot continue to, quote, dump money into Cogware Games' Shipwrecked project in the same fashion that he has been paying for his wife's medical bills in the following recording.
I just looked at the numbers.
Fuck! Our entire brand's been going down the drain. The stocks, I've never seen stocks get this fucking low. And we're still bringing people on. We're still expanding. At this point, what the fuck's a layoff gonna do? It'll sink us further into the shit! Okay, the best option. I think the best option we've got, I've been... it's been going in my head for like the past 5 fucking hours now. The best option we got is to cut the game studio we've hired. Okay, we've been basically dumping money into their pockets, and I don't know what exactly they're making. I haven't heard from them in months. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna schedule a meeting with them. Okay, and if they don't have exactly what they've promised, we cut them off. It would save our asses in the long run. It'd probably give us a fighting chance. It's... God, fuck. You know what? I just realized I'm throwing the exact same amount of money I'm paying for Harley's medical bills into this fucking game studio! You know what? I'll figure it out.
From here, we can surmise that the earlier segment in Walter's area was Mark talking about his wife being admitted to the hospital, as is another recording that we can find in Walter's Layer 3 area labeled Affirmations 1, But Mark continues to talk about how hopeless things seem with Harley in the hospital and having to sit in the office by himself, sometimes for days on end. We can also find posters on the wall that describe more of what Broadside Animations and possibly Mark are covering up, with the anonymous writer, who we can assume to be the lead developer and founder of Cogware Games, Connor, describing how deaths at Broadside Beach and studio grounds are photographed, covered up, and casually shared between higher-ups on a flash drive. After putting together all 15 notes, it reads, I was at the offices last night. I had brought a drive with me. It contained a presentation for Broadside. I didn't grab that drive on the way out. When I slid my drive into the slot, nothing I included was there, but instead a branching web of folders, the contents of which were repulsive. Many different folders, so many names, so many labels, so many mistakes. It's sickening. Folders dedicated to old cartoons, but not just that. Cover-ups too. Every slip of the mask was justified. Their goodwill was rooted in fiction. Controversies on Bullet N were silenced. Any bad blood the company had silently sizzled out. This document of these lies created only to keep their story straight. It goes beyond public issues, though. People have died at their parks. And you think that's bad now? Get this. A little girl was crushed in the Squirrel Cruise, quite literally. Head caught between the track and the boat. I saw the pictures. It's as bad as you think. Oh, and it gets worse. So much worse. Not only have guests died, but employees too. Before studio grounds, they owned an entire island. And on that island, at the very least, there were 3 deaths. 3 deaths and no news coverage? Why? Fiction. It's all rooted in fiction. It's a miraculous recovery that boy had. Near-death experience, yet he's back in the park. It was a cover story. It gets much worse, though. Oh, that drive? Photos of bodies. 4 in total. Very heavy blacks and whites. This wasn't the original image. It was a copy. The fact these images are photocopied, to me at least, means that people shared images of dead people. Oh, and you want to know what else? There's footage of the murders. I want more than anything to say what I found. Yet, I can't. It'd ruin us. These guys are our only paying clients in years. Fucking hate this. I guess I'm writing this for more, dunno, relief? Peace of mind? Hard to say, really. All I know is this is gonna stick with me. Okay, gotta take a sip of water after that one. That was a really long note left by that guy. Even so, Connor's findings make the game all the more sinister as we run frantically from the half-alive abominations of former Broadside employees. In order to proceed to the next objective, as mentioned earlier, we needed to turn on 20 gold and silver tech prime computers in 10 minutes. Horror aside, this was surprisingly hard. Once caught and subsequently jump-scared by any of the starlings, we were placed in a jail cell with a keypad whose code Stumbler provided to us earlier on his website. If we were unable to turn on all the computers by the time the timer reaches 0, we have to restart from the beginning. To facilitate this process, I created a map of the plaza using a combination of the map video provided at the start of the area and my own memory of where each computer was and how many there were in each area. Mapping out this process made things much easier, where between jump scares and hiding for our lives, we were able to turn on all 20 computers.
I gotta escape now.
Oh! Afterwards, we were required to complete the second task delegated to us by Stumbler, collecting 3 batteries to power on the computer in the basement of the plaza. This task, while requiring equal effort as we cannot jump with the batteries, requiring us to walk slowly, each battery to its receptacle, did not take very long, allowing us to turn on the computer and see what awaits us.
Downloading.
Not only are we able to leave, but we are also brought to a webpage that is an extension of Cogware Games' website, with a tab being titled A Secret. Here, there is a wireframe of Bucky's waving animation, as well as a message from EB_Cogware, we can assume is the developer Elizabeth Baker, prompting us to click the hyperlink and see this quote, very, very important thing. Upon clicking the hyperlink, the webpage begins to download a zip file. All the while, my stomach is in knots, dreading what could be included in this mysterious archive. Swallowing the frog in my throat, I opened the zip file and discovered that what we just downloaded were the files that Connor had stolen from the office, bringing what was once dubiously covered up to the light of day, where we see 3 folders, one labeled Gary, another Nathan, and the last Olivia. Within these files is the footage of these 3 Broadside employees being murdered, photocopies of their mangled corpses, and miscellaneous files that either detail their injuries, provide pictures of the employees prior to being deceased, or audio files, such as this one in Gary's folder labeled fishstand.ogg. In this audio tape, we hear the beginning of one of Broadside Animation's original shorts, starring Bucky trying to outsell Giovanni's deep-fried fish by instead of selling fish made with love, before we hear the audio distort into Giovanni expressing his hate for the beaver. I'll let you take a listen.
It was a bright, sunny day, and Bucky was setting up his local fish shop down by the local market. It was a humble little shop, selling various fish he and Olive had caught on their various trips. That's when Bucky looked to his left and he saw them. It was Giovanni Goose, world-renowned chef, and, by Bucky's luck, Giovanni had set up right next to him. Suddenly, everyone was lining up to buy fish from Giovanni, leaving no one to get any from Bucky. Bucky had sighed, peeking over the booth, watching as Giovanni made his fish. He would dip them into the deep fryer. They looked so delicious. The breading, the fish themselves. Then, compared to Bucky's flame-cooked fish, the competition was not in his favor. That's when Bucky got an idea. He thought to himself, hey, Giovanni may be making his fish with fryers and various spices, but mine are made with love. Bucky began jotting down a new sign, putting it up on his counter. A nice sign that said, made with love.
You know what? I don't want to admit I'm wrong. You were right, Bucky. Maybe starting them with love was the right way to go. I feel like I judged you too hard, Bucky. Really, I do. I've always been very strict on you. I'm fully aware. Part of it is because I hate you, but the other part, I really care about you. I don't want to see you go down the path that many others do. I want you to be the best you that you possibly can. That's why I'm so hard on you all the time. I hope you know that.
After exploring these stolen files, I sprint one more time across the plaza and escape, not before being jump-scared by Olive during the loading screens between areas. As my heart rate recovers, we can take a look at the new area before us. Layer 4, starting with what looks to be a location for testing the game's mechanics. Later on, we learn that this area is referred to as, quote, the convention demo, which Stumbler refers to on his website as, quote, a paradise, and Connor in an earlier devlog as being a place untouched by corporate greed.
I decided that, for a good chunk of the 4th layer of skin to the game, I wanted to add a bit of my own flair. So I migrated the files from our convention demo into the game. When people find it, it'll be like they're seeing our history, seeing what was corrupted by corporate suit and Thai fuckwits, Mark Mole.
Included in this area are several climbable objects, the same poop golem / wooden effigy from earlier watching us from afar, a wandering NPC, and several other rooms that showcase mechanics in the game or lighting systems used by the developers. It isn't until we leave this demo and take the elevator down to the next area where we're reminded that this is indeed a horror game. The next area looks to be an office space, officially referred to by the wiki as, quote, the aquarium. Within this area there is some office equipment, such as computers and desks, and a keypad adorning one of the walls, but not seemingly much else. As I was exploring this area, I began to feel a sense of dread that things were peaceful. Too peaceful. My suspicions were correct as the music began to change and a deformed creature resembling a rabbit jump scares us and begins to sprint at us. Whereupon being caught, we get a disturbing endgame screen that features the rabbit's face glitching before showing what looks to be a grave before we were respawned in the aquarium. Upon inspection, there are several noticeable features about this new dweller, referred to as, quote, blot. Like Olive, he can monitor us in the margins of our screens and appear at will. Furthermore, he can hear audio tapes being played and will bolt to us immediately after overhearing them. As if this wasn't bad enough, he can also appear as a disguised barrel in order to emerge from the floor, where he radically disfigures his appearance, growing appendages that look too long for his body, out of place, or growing features that belong to Bucky's other friends, before emerging and attacking us.
Who is it gonna be, though? He's been assembled, the $1 Million Man.
Beyond his abilities, his features are striking in a ghastly way. He appears to be a rabbit, donning a newsboy or ivy cap where, in the absence of eyes, there are several rows of teeth that surround the perimeter of his eyelids. Moreover, he bears a striking resemblance to the creator of Broadside Animation, Rex Broadside's original creation, Blot Bunny. Could it be that this aberration is the corpse of Rex Broadside, reanimated using the material found on the island? This idea is supported when listening to Blot as he patrols the area. In addition to playing classical music as he chases us, when hiding, we can hear him repeat the same 3 letters of the NATO phonetic alphabet, Romeo, Echo, X-ray, spelling out his late creator's name. In light of this, it raises the question of why? Why would Broadside Animation take their beloved creator and defile his corpse by giving it to this half-alive virus that has now taken it over? What would this achieve? As we mull over this question, there is one more area that we can explore in Layer 4, the sewers. By taking the elevator to the lowest level, we find ourselves in a dark, musty area with moss covering the walls and ceilings. Similar to the Plaza, we are given a map near the start of the level via YouTube video, which suggests that everything is not as it seems, with some walls containing hidden areas, and that we should avoid the, quote, control room, as Stumbler notes in the video's description that, quote, I know I didn't cover anything beyond the control room. I heard some scary noises in there and chose to keep myself away. After detailing the layout of the sewer, an image of Olivia's waterlogged face can be seen in the background as the video ends. How reassuring. For a while, I was actually confused about what I was supposed to do in this area. Unlike the Plaza in which we had instructions from Stumbler, I was entering this area blind, with no knowledge about what evil lies here, let alone an objective. This confusion was quickly replaced with genuine fear, as I began to hear a distorted, unintelligible conversation in the background, an erratic ringing that signaled Olivia's return, where after failing to promptly hide, I was caught. However, much like the Plaza, I was only captured instead of being brutalized, where I was placed in a jail cell with a dead wolf villager, marking the length of his stay with blood-drawn checkmarks on the wall. There is also a computer that, once clicked on, leads to a video informing us on how to escape the jail cell. Even with these instructions, if you wait around for too long as I did, what can happen is the starling resembling Bucky begins closing in on you. Being that he cannot get to you on the other side of the iron bars, he'll express his frustration through forcibly opening tabs on your web browser to depict disturbing imagery.
My gut is telling me it's just gonna teleport to me.
Including a picture of Rex's disfigured corpse that reads, I wish I could rot like you. and another photo of a man's face that says, "I still remember my face," among several others. Could the latter of the two be referring to what the theme park employee originally looked like before being taken over by its symbiotic host? As we ponder this question, if we decide not to escape out the front door, the back of the jail cell has a hidden passage, allowing us to walk through the wall and subsequently stumble upon a secret alcove containing several color-coded pipes, a short boat ride, and a keypad next to a large Silvertech Prime computer with a battery indicating that currently we have 0 out of 3 of some objective. By inputting the colors of the pipes from earlier using the Picasso cipher, a YouTube video opens in our web browser, revealing the missing piece to our escape. Hidden across the sewers are invisible buttons that, when pressed, will likely allow us to progress into the next area. Using the video provided to us earlier, I created this map to better keep track of where I was at any given time, as well as where the hidden buttons were located as I found them. Slowly but surely, we are able to avoid capture by the many dwellers pursuing us in this new area, including a starling resembling Bucky and Blot from the floor above us, and before long we are able to press all the buttons, which not only opens a gate, but provides us with this video. Upon reversing the video, it appears that the narrator is saying, "Al paid with his life."
Paid with his life. Al paid with his life. Al paid with his life.
Who is Al? Although I wanted to mull on this mystery further, I decided to dive further into the murky labyrinth, where we can find a recording of Connor being irate, denouncing his latest script recording, stating that he won't be surprised when his coworkers give him their 2 weeks' notice.
Toss the script. Toss the fucking script! It's done! It's over! That went horribly. I can't even lie to myself on this recording. It went horribly. All that work, all for nothing. It's only a matter of time till I get their 2-week notices on my desk.
Along with this recording, we can find another beyond the control room, where Connor continues his tirade, exclaiming that he'll take matters into his own hands.
Change of plans. Liz has already done everything she needed to. Harry's done. Well, enough. I'm taking the reins now. I'm completing this on my own. No help, no influence from Broadside, Mark, or any of those disgusting fucks. I was worried about what he'd do to me. By the time I'm done with him, he will regret the day he first uttered my name.
Aside from these recordings, there is a backroom filled with numerous computers, as well as 2 codes written on the walls in a similar format to an area that can be found in the aquarium. However, neither of these discoveries fill me with as much anxiety as the remaining item in the unlocked room. A computer with a button that, once pressed, takes us to a website that says in big letters, CODEBREAKER. The website then states, "You know what to do." What? No, I don't. What are you talking about? It goes on to state that, quote, "If we don't, figure it out." Okay, gee, that's really helpful. Included with these words of motivation are another series of codes in the foreground of a rather sinister-looking image in the background, with a figure that eerily resembles Vandal from what we've seen of him so far. Upon clicking the hyperlink, I begin to think that I have made a mistake. Like earlier, the hyperlink takes us to a Dropbox link that begins to download a zip package. Once unzipped, there's an exe labeled, quote, SW64 demo. Overcoming my apprehensions, I take a deep breath and open the application. What greets us are some game configuration settings before being placed in the starting screen like normal. Despite this, once we press start, Bucky's friends all glare at him, much to his dismay. The screen then pans out and we find ourselves looking at a Silvertech computer with Shipwrecked pulled up. We find ourselves on a small platform, with Bucky exclaiming how fun that game looks. Upon trying to save, the canvas falls off the side of the map, subtly acknowledging that we cannot save, nor are we necessarily safe in this new area we have found ourselves in. If we decide to follow the canvas off the cliff, the game crashes to desktop and we are provided this video that monotonously repeats, "Falling, that's a new one," before briefly displaying a faceless Chief Wolf.
That's it, falling. That's it, falling. That's it, falling. That's falling.
Once we are able to reboot the game, we can head into the door behind us. Somewhat jarringly, a video of Bucky begins playing where we can see him traversing a behind-the-scenes area of what we can assume to be Broadside. before the video cuts to black and we find ourselves in a room with a multitude of large Silvertech Prime computers, a panel of buttons with keypads nearby, and a computer with a monochrome mouth repeatedly opening and closing. Interacting with this computer results in Bucky describing how Paul does this often, and that while annoying, he'll simmer down soon enough. Yet again, we are left with numerous questions. Who is Paul? Is he another of Bucky's victims? Are he and Al related? Although there is no immediate answer to these questions, one thing is certain. It seems the purpose of this room is to decode the 4-digit passcodes given to us in earlier areas of Layer 4. Once again, the brain cells who would otherwise be tenants in my brain have decided to renew their lease elsewhere, leaving my vacant cerebrum hopeless before this overwhelming puzzle. Fortunately, one of my big brain friends was able to brilliantly see right through this challenge and recognize that the marks on the walls of the aquarium, as well as those on the CODEBREAKER website, corresponded to which buttons we needed to press as we inputted the provided codes into the computer. Doing just this unlocked the gate, providing a series of videos depending on which codes we entered. For example, pressing the farthest two buttons from the left and inputting 4123 and 9981 reveal the following video graphically depicting Olivia's death. In addition to this video and another from the sewer encouraging us to keep going, we find this footage asking us to count the number of objects in a particular room. Interestingly, this video itself is another code that we must put into the CODEBREAKER, where we use a combination of how many of the objects are in each of the labeled rooms in the aquarium, and use the color-coded rooms to receive yet another video, detailing the exact code we need to enter the locked part of the aquarium. Which, by the way, I'd been trying to crack for days, so this was quite the relief. Once inside, we find ourselves in a series of walkways with our old friend watching over us. A little further in, we find a note from Cogware describing the following. It shambled, pulling itself out of the room. When it was far enough out of the building, it split right in half. The two halves went their separate ways. What? There doesn't seem to be a figurative way to interpret this description, so what could have literally split apart? Who or what are the two halves? It seems that the rest of the notes in this area provide some context to this cryptic message that, when put together, read like so. In 1995, there was a mass made out of 4 men. The men and 1 woman, to be exact. It sat in a room, waiting for its liberation. That would not come for years. The mass of 4 men sat in the room. It writhed and twitched like a dying animal, but it was still very much alive. It craved freedom, liberation, and happiness. It begged, pleaded to leave, but it was held in that room for a long time. One day, though, when checked upon, the mass was missing. It shambled, pulling itself out of the room. When it was far enough out of the building, it split right in half. The two halves went their separate ways. Where this tunnel leads, you'll know well. Just promise me you're gonna stay calm. If you go through it, you can open the gate. The world needs to know. While currently unclear, we will discover more about what this quote mass pertains later on in the video. In the meantime, we continue to discover new things in this area, all the while being chased by the dread-laden blot. Outside of his wrath, we incur a new video, one that displays colorful fish in a single date, March 12th, 1960. A quick Google search reveals that this is when One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish was published by Dr. Seuss, which then gives us the code needed using a combination of the provided numbers in the Picasso cipher. Yet, even after entering the code, the door did not open.
You can't do this to me.
Coincidentally, my internet went out the moment I entered the code, so not only did I almost pee my pants out of fear, I thought that the panel had bugged out, so I closed the game, and waited until my internet returned before trying again, only to have the same result. It wasn't until I revisited the video description that I discovered that there was a link to another video that, when clicked, highlights the buttons that we need to press in order to escape the aquarium. After pressing the button, we are able to walk a bit further, where we can find a recording of Connor detailing how Stumbler was originally a jab at Mark Mullen's wife, on account of Mark's wife Harley having to amputate one of her arms because of her illness, as well as making the rabbit a, quote, hopeless romantic to further disparage Mark's desperate attempts to help his ailing wife.
I think about that one rabbit a lot. Stumbler, I think Liz called him. Yeah, he's funny. I think the funniest part is his missing arms. I managed to sneak in a jab towards Mark's wife and having her arm amputated. She was fresh on my mind when I was suggesting the idea to Liz. And hey, her making her a little guy a hopeless romantic as well. It lines up pretty damn well with how Mark is, doesn't it? Funny character. You know, that does remind me, they've got another rabbit, don't they? That'd be a fun thing to put in too.
Going further, we find a door that, after opening, we stumble into a cramped, pitch-black space that Buggy acknowledges that he is familiar with. You know, there really isn't that much in here. Oh. At the center of the atrium, there is a giant beating heart looming overhead, suggesting that the place we are currently in, presumably the Stitch Caves referenced earlier, are very much alive, as is the rest of the island of Nulla Terra. This is only the tip of the iceberg, however. As we enter the door at the back of the cave, we are brought back to the elevator, where a gate that was previously closed is now open. Upon walking inside, we get a grim glimpse into the final sequence of the game and just how close we are to making sense of this madness. We are congratulated for reaching the end of the demo before the suspenseful text on screen presents us nothing?
Is that the end?
While seemingly anticlimactic at first, upon entering the boat, a shaky, grainy video plays that describes how someone, quote, saw a monster earlier today. Not long after, the same wooden effigies we have been seeing throughout the game, one of which is seen moving toward the camera person. The screen then distorts before Husk begins talking, expressing his relief at having someone to join him in the following sequence.
It's you. I thought I was the only one rotting down here. So much has happened. So much. It's all beyond your understanding. They call out to me. All four of them. I hear their voices skittering around in the inside of my wooden shell, even down to the pulsating mass laying beneath it. I need you to find me. I won't be easy to catch. You'll need to prove to me that you want what I have. If you do as I ask, you'll know everything. Every single detail of what happened. Why you are who you are. What do you say, Fred? Let's give it a go.
As Husk describes, we need to find him in order to discover what has been truly going on. This segues into the final task required of us in the game, collecting 10 Poop Golem statues. Before completing this task, it becomes apparent that we are no longer back at the Layer 1 that we are used to. Rather, we find ourselves in what the wiki references as, quote, the Nulla Terra Remnants. The sky's hue resembles that of the bad ending when the volcano, Mount Pinatubo, erupts and lays waste to Bucky and his friends. Moreover, upon collecting the first husk, and a creepy video plays imploring us to find him, we learn that we are not alone. All of the dwellers from each area are now with us, making a last-ditch attempt at preventing us from learning the truth behind this game's development. Their desperation is emphasized by their aggression, as I found myself often having to run and or hide from several of them at the same time.
Can they, like, go somewhere else?
On the bright side, this segment of the game is not as hard as some of the others. While we lose one husk statue for every time we get caught, sometimes the husks can spawn in relatively close proximity, allowing us to rack up the counter efficiently. It also helps that Walter Walrus seemingly has worse detection capabilities than some of the other dwellers. I'm not sure if this is intentional, but I found myself on several occasions being able to make a break for it past Walter, who appeared to have either better things to do or recognize he was too slow to catch up. Upon collecting the final husk, the game flashes one final grainy red video of Husk before we hear him say the following.
I think there's a boat probably now. Oh no.
Ask, and you shall receive.
From here, we are transported back to the segment from Walter's area. Despite reliving a case of deja vu, the button now plays an entirely different sequence, detailing what really happened following the emergency meeting between the Broadside CEO, Mark Mullins, and the Cogware development team.
Connor, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been playing this for about 2 hours now, and I'm not seeing the widespread appeal you've been promising us. It's, well, to be honest with you, it's clunky. I don't know what I'm doing. The characters who you promised would have depth and life. They are just flat. I thought that's the entire point of a 3D game.
What?
You oversold it, Connor. That's what I'm trying to say. The company is meant to be forging new frontiers, and, to be frank, after what happened at Studio Grounds, I really don't think this is going to be anything. It's not going to be anything in the same tier as our movies, our park, anything. And I really hate to say this, because I know for a fact you and your team put a lot of work into this game, but I just don't know if it's worth continuing to sink money into.
Sink money into? Mark, this is our job. You've had us working on this for 2 years, and now suddenly it's an issue?
Yes, it's been 2 years. And in those 2 years, you've only sat me down now and showed me the actual fucking game.
So, what can we do to fix it?
No, Liz. This isn't a fix the game issue. It's a fix your perspective issue. Mark, you are sitting in front of some of the greatest technology of the decade, and you're gonna brush it off?
Connor, I'm not brushing anything off. I'm just trying to understand where this...
I'm sorry to say, Mark, but it's true. It's not that we've made a bad game. We've all exceeded the industry standard. What we're having a hard time passing is your thick skull and...
Connor! Stop. Look, I'm so sorry about him. He's just under a lot of...
Is it Harley? Is it not worth it anymore because you're trying to treat her instead?
What?
Yeah, I said it.
What are you bringing her into this for?
Because I bet that's what you're gonna do. You can't keep funding our 2 years worth of work. Gotta buy her a fancy casket.
Unbelievable.
Mark, look, I'm really sorry.
Liz, you're fine, okay? But I want you to know that we are done, professionally. All right? I don't want to work with any of you guys again. Quite frankly, I don't want to see you guys touch our property. Any of that. Am I clear?
Yes, Mark.
You can go now.
No. Because first of all, I want our equipment back.
You can go now! You can go! Leave!
Take a step closer. Lay a fucking hand on me. You lay one hand on me, I'm gonna make sure you stay in jail for a real long fucking time. Huh? Who are they gonna believe? You? You are nothing. I will be taking my leave now. Good luck in your future endeavors. I expect the office to be cleared by next week. Do not contact me again.
During this exchange, Connor fervently expresses his rage at the perceived audacity of Mark to belittle their hard work. Nonetheless, it seems that Mark, following his meeting, decided to cut funding for the game, leading its production to come to a sudden halt. After this hard-to-hear dialogue between the two parties, we find ourselves in a new space, one that is dark and utterly barren. Bucky's expression has changed from one that is usually upbeat to one that is incredibly somber, indicated by his depressed gaze and the sunken frown that stretches his face. His next statement then contradicts this presentation, stating that it's a lovely day today, and how he could, quote, use some fresh air. Making it to the end of the hallway reveals an equally barren landscape, containing only other balconies with rooms as empty as ours. Bucky then begs us to, quote, please, just do it, where our only option is then to jump off the balcony. We slowly fall to the ground until a picture suddenly appears on screen with the cast of Shipwrecked 64 with the message of, thank you Mark, below the group photo. From here, we are presented real-world footage of someone's balcony. The camera pans over the outside of someone's home before pausing and zooming in to the top floor. What follows is a eulogy posted by CODEBREAKER Games that announces that Connor, the lead developer and founder of CODEBREAKER Games, had taken his own life. The game then describes that, after discovering this material in the game, Shipwrecked 64 was immediately pulled from shelves. It then states that hardly anyone has seen what this game has been hiding for so long, until now. A message then displays on screen that says, in honor of Connor Thomas, followed by a message from his son, Patrick, voicing how much he and others miss him, and that by restoring the game, he hopes that his memory will live on. We are then shown the Broadside mascots, Olive, Walter, and Giovanni, against an angelic white background while peaceful music plays, before Bucky is shown in similar fashion. While the game cuts to black, thanking us for playing, and then rolling credits before it ends. And that's it. We have finally beaten Shipwrecked 64. I just wanted to say this disclaimer that, although the game often references seemingly real events and takes us out of the game to play out ARG elements, the contents of this game are fiction. At least, I hope so. Putting it all together, I want to do one of two things. The first being to quickly summarize the timeline of the game. According to the wiki and information we have discovered so far in the game, it all started with Rex Broadside accidentally selling off his character Plot in a merchandising deal designed to trick him sometime before 1961. Following this, Rex creates Bucky Beaver and subsequently Broadside Animation, with other characters being created shortly after and featured in various cartoons. However, at some point in time ongoing from 1961, Rex is diagnosed with cancer and begins to lament what the executives at his company are turning his image into. In one of his audio logs labeled 7 Fateful Years, he expresses his grievances regarding his legacy and how his name is being disrespectfully used to boost sales. The audio log is quite long, so I'll only play a few highlights.
I can't keep doing this. It's hurting. Everything is hurting. My body is just failing on me. There's nothing I could do about it. I just don't know what to do. I can't do anything. There's literally nothing I can do here. All of this has just gone incredibly downhill. But my family won't talk to me. The Broadside company isn't even picking up my calls anymore. I just don't know what to do. I don't even know my own company anymore. They just running this all without me. I wouldn't be surprised if he thought I was dead. I just can't do this.
There is something so horribly wrong going on here. They are trying to convert my brand into a theme park on some island in bumfuck nowhere. They are gonna slap my name on everything, use my creations, basically make a mockery out of everything I spent my entire life building.
After selling the company, Rex isolates in Broadside Beach. Broadside Animation's first theme park is opened shortly after. Rex would then live on for another 2 decades before passing away in the late 1980s, where Broadside Animation would then further capitalize on his success by creating a new theme park, Studio Grounds, supposedly in his quote honor. Mark Mullins, the now CEO of Broadside Animation, would then develop Broadside Innovative Laboratory, a quote research facility focused on post-death immortality, according to the wiki. Here, Rex is brought back to life in the form of a starling resembling his first created character, Blot. Sometime after, a park employee named Brandon Lester, whose name is referenced at several points in Shipwrecked 64, including the entrance to Layer 3, dies of fentanyl overdose. Rather than making his death public, the executives at Broadside decide to cover up his death and experiment on his corpse, leading to the creation of the Bucky Starling. This Starling then goes on in the span of December 1989 to June 1990 to murder Olivia Finch, Gary Wilson, and Nathan Stewart, whose bodies are turned into the Olive Otter, Giovanni Goose, and Walter Walrus Starlings, respectively. All in the pursuit of creating an icon to rival Disney, seeing as Broadside, one of its competitors, would now have a creator who lived on forever, along with his creative genius, and creating mascots that did not wear nor tire and thus could perpetually work, the Starlings began to become both a vital part of Broadside's theme parks and an increasingly difficult secret to contain. It isn't long before the latter is highlighted, where, in 1995, the quote mass composed of excess starling matter of Brandon, Olivia, Garen, and Nathan, quite literally, split apart into 2 living beings, one being Vandal, who escaped Studio Grounds and used his newfound autonomy to harass Studio Grounds and hunt down Mark Mullins, and Husk, who, outside of helping us discover the secrets Connor left behind, has motivations that are less clear. What we do know is that in the same year, Mark Mullins approaches Cogware Games, composed of Connor Thomas, Elizabeth Baker, and Harry Waters, to create a Bucky Beaver-inspired video game under the name Shipwrecked. Several years later, in 1997, Mark Mullins decided to pull funding from the game after not seeing the progress he was hoping for. Connor then steals the company equipment, finishes the game in secret, and includes all the wrongdoings of Broadside Animation in the game's files, and ends his life within the same year, with Studio Grounds then closing shortly after. After consumers begin to discover the atrocities hidden on the game cartridge, is immediately pulled from shelves, and Connor's hidden story doesn't see the light of day until January 1st, 2024, where Shipwrecked 64 is released, and, with help from 2 of the ex-devs from the 1997 version, Liz and Harry, the original ROM is released, detailing what happened nearly 25 years prior. Whew, that is a lot. Beyond the game's story, the last part of our journey involves using Unreal Engine tools to explore outside of the game's playable map, as is encouraged by the game's developers. A couple significant discoveries include several notes that can be found out of bounds that seem to reference lines said by either Connor or Husk, as well as several humorous one-liners that the developers definitely intended for us to find. Moreover, we can find not just one, but many olive otters patrolling the top of a building in the distance, as well as a sign that, according to the wiki, pokes fun at Olive's forgetfulness and easygoing attitude in her minigame. While there were many little discoveries to be found out of bounds, the last notable finding comes in the form of a giant heart beating silently under Nulla Terra, confirming the notion from earlier that the island is truly alive and will continue to live on in the confines of the game. Despite this video being as long as it is, there are still numerous secrets in and out of game that deserve coverage that I'll not be able to get to today. But one thing is certain, This game, hands down, is now not only my favorite horror game, but also has the best use of ARG elements I have seen in any game I've played so far. This game takes the cake in every aspect. The world building this game creates is unlike any other and rivals that of other acclaimed titles in the genre. With regards to gameplay, even though the gameplay loop is largely similar throughout the game, there is enough variety to keep things fresh and entertaining while learning more about the game and its rich, extensive lore. Arguably, one large chunk of games like these that should be polished are the horror elements, and in my opinion, I believe Shipwrecked has this down to a science. There was never a point during the game where I felt comfortable. In a good way. I would argue that's how a good horror game should be, keeping you on your toes and filling you with a sense of dread so that there is never a dull moment. The subtle unease this game creates is phenomenal and is complemented by the more outright scares through jump scares that are tasteful and not overdone as in some other horror games. In addition to these positive aspects of the game, the voice acting was done very well. Kudos to all the voice actors who made their respective characters come to life and make the game's plot seem very believable, almost blurring the line between fiction and reality.
And until she's out, I'm sitting in this office. It's big, it's cozy, yet it feels so empty.
The game's ARG elements are no exception to the game's other fantastic qualities. I spent quite literally hours having a fun time deciphering different codes and trying to link different websites, videos, and elements provided by the game together. Beyond these aspects, the game's audio design was outstanding and really made me believe I was either hiding and or running for my actual life during some of the intense horror segments. Also, one quick aside, the platforming is actually kind of fun, and I would love to see more segments that just involve playing around with the satisfying jumping and wall bouncing mechanics. I really could go on forever. This game has earned the right to be called a classic for many years to come, and it seems like many others in the community agree, per its overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. Best part? It's only $8. That is a steal for a game of such excellent quality. If you love horror games and or games with extensive puzzle and ARG elements, it's a no-brainer to buy this and give it a try. As we conclude this video, I wanted to thank you, the viewer, for watching. Please let us know your thoughts about the game in the comments below. Were there some secrets you discovered that weren't shown in this video? How about your favorite parts of the story? Or what about your own personal experience with the game is something that you think others would like to hear? Feel free to share anything that comes to mind. In addition, if you enjoyed watching this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Also, share it with your friends if you think they'd enjoy it too. Until next time, this is Droll Gaming, signing off.
I don't think I'll ever stop. Yeah. It shouldn't take this long. I'd expect him to be right there.